questions and answers thing tonight. If there are any questions, you can put your name down or it can be anonymous. And we're going to read them and screen them first, but it's the LGBTQ panel. If you can ask those questions. Is there anything anybody wants to ask? No?
Well, you might after they speak. Okay. That's okay.
Fellowship. Thank you. Are you house manager? You and I got to talk. My name's Amanda.
How are you?
Jameson, I talked to you on the phone. Yeah. Right. Get your questions ready. All right, yes. Oh, did you guys get your cards? Jameson said everyone will fill them out for the panel. So, you can put your name on it or not. Everyone get your cards for the questions? Okay. So we have questions and answers. You can put your name on it with the question or not. And for the panel. So, yeah, just love that. You're welcome. Hi, here we go. Hi. Good. Jenny, right? Your name's too. So I have 2 pens. Any questions are welcome. There's no dumb question. Put your name on it or you want to. Good eye.
I'm gonna sit down here all by myself.
Go ahead.
No. No. Marissa. I can go get Marissa.
Something about all the men's presentations here. That by example.
Oh yeah, the one time I went to yeah, the one time.
think we can start the video.
Welcome to the Fan Macomb Monthly Forum, our local meeting where individuals and families come together to educate and support each other while learning about substance use disorder, recovery, and related issues through guest speakers and community resources. Families Against Narcotics continues to expand our reach across Michigan. What started as a single support group meeting in the basement of a church in Fraser has now grown to more than 20 chapters statewide. FAN offers numerous support services for people who are struggling with or are affected by addiction, and all of them are provided completely free of charge. These include Hope Not Handcuffs, which in collaboration with law enforcement and the assistance of volunteer angels, has helped thousands get the compassionate support and help they need and deserve. The Come Back Quick Response Team Initiative, which visits people who have survived an overdose and brings help and support directly to their doorstep. And Stronger Together, a friends and family support program that can transform a life of despair to a life of hope and purpose. Our coaching programs, which include peer and family coaches and our online coaching corner sessions, help people affected by addiction navigate their way through recovery. Meanwhile, we continue to educate the public through naloxone training, which provides free naloxone kits to individuals and groups and teaches them the proper way to administer this life-saving medication that can reverse an opioid overdose. Stigma education teaches people that words do matter, and that substance use disorder is a brain disease, not a moral failing. And our school outreach initiative raises awareness among students and educates them by sharing real-life stories of addiction and recovery. We're glad that you're here with us today. Please know that you are not alone. We care about you and believe that compassion is greater than stigma. We have peer and family recovery coaches in attendance, so if you need to talk with someone, please seek them out. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask a FAN staff member. We are here to support and help you.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our monthly FAN Forum. I just want to make an announcement before we start. This forum is normally held on the third Tuesday of the month and not the fourth Tuesday of the month, but we had to make a change this month because the church had something already scheduled. So please make note of that. My name is Frankie. I'm the peer recovery coach supervisor for Families Against Narcotics. Just a couple save the dates. August 8th is our Hope Classic Golf Tournament at Wani Golf Club. August 31st is Overdose Awareness Day, and we have that here at Paradox Church. It usually starts around 7 o'clock. And then October 4th, we have our Golf Fest at the Palazzo Grande. Those are all amazing fundraisers. They all help fund some of the things that FAN does in the community throughout the year. So if you're interested in any of those, there are some forums up there. There's also a QR code. I always get those confused. A QR code that you can scan with your phone to register for any of those events. Tonight, we have a panel. It is for Pride Month, which is this month. We have 5 different speakers. We have a mother of someone in the LGBTQ community. We have a FAN employee. We have another member of the LGBTQ community. We have a business owner and an ally. And we also have a therapist who are going to share some of their experience with you. I'll let them introduce themselves as they get up. We also passed out some cards with pens. If anybody has any questions, while people are speaking or telling their story and you have any questions that you want to ask, you can write those questions down on those cards and I will collect them and I will ask the questions. You are free to be anonymous or you can put your name on there. It's completely up to you. If there is a particular person that you would like that question addressed to, please make sure you put that on the card. We're going to do pass the mic. If you could all please keep this really brief. We're going to pass the mic. You're going to introduce yourself. You're going to let us know why you're here, so that we can welcome you. Please just make it brief because we do have a full panel and we want them to be able to share as much as they can. Prior to that, is there anyone here who's attending their very first fan forum? Can you stand up so that we can pass out some welcome bags? As soon as we get those passed out, we'll start the panel. Okay, so we're going to start pass the mic.
Hi, my name's Ariel. I am a program coordinator for the harm reduction team Harmless with Families Against Narcotics. And I'm also an alcoholic and addict woman in long-term recovery.
I am Chelsea. I'm a support coordinator for both Harmless and Old Neck Handcuffs, and also a woman in long-term recovery.
I'm River.
Kelly is an addict and part of the LGBTQ.
I'm Deanna. I'm an addict.
I'm Holly, I'm in recovery.
Hey guys, I'm Mark and I am in recovery and I'm looking to make more meetings within my own community, so this is nice to see.
I'm Jason. I am a member of the LGBT community and also an addict. I am supporting two panelists today. I've been learning two of them for many years.
I'm Janine and also a member of More Than I Know.
My name's Lisa, and I'm an addict.
I'm Sydney and I'm
Hi, I'm Denise, and our daughter is an addict and an alcoholic.
I'm Bill.
My name is Rita. My son is in recovery, and I do support FAN wholeheartedly, and I'm here to become more educated. Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm a peer recovery coach with FAN Against Narcotics and Women in Long-Term Recovery.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm an addict, and I'm here on behalf of my sobriety and my recovery.
Hi, my name's Brandon. I am on Team Harmless. I hope the fan.
Hi everyone, my name is Sonia Barish. I'm the Director of Operations at FAN.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm the Program Director for the Combat Quick Response Team.
I'm Linda Davis, I'm the Executive Director of FAN.
I'm Anna. I have a son in recovery, and I'm a family recovery coach with FAN.
Hi, I'm Kevin and I'm a fan.
I am Jennifer. I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Hi, my name is Amy Bruni. I'm a recovery coach for the 41B treatment courts, and I'm a support coordinator for FAN's recovery coaching program, Navigate.
I'm Remy. I'm in recovery. I'm Amber. I'm a member of the LGBT community, and I'm also a recovery.
I'm Bonnie, I'm a recovering addict. I'm Dee, I'm a recovering addict.
I'm Michael, I'm an alcoholic. I'm Nicholas, I'm in recovery. My name is Blake, I'm an addict in recovery.
My name is James, I'm a recovering addict, also house manager at Fellowship Recovery.
So I'm a recovering addict. Hello everybody, I'm David, I'm an addict in recovery.
Hi, I'm Sherry Hetzler. I'm a defense attorney with the specialty courts, drugs courts, veterans treatment courts, and sobriety court. Hi, my name is Amanda Herman. I'm a coordinator for the Hope Not Handcuffs program, and I'm also a person in long-term recovery.
Mike, and alcoholics.
Hi, my name is Marissa. I'm the Community Education Coordinator here at FAN, and I'm also a member of the LGBTQ community.
Hi, I'm Kathy, and I help answer the helpline.
Hi, I'm Kate, and I'm an intern.
Hi, I'm Emma, and I'm in recovery, and I work at FAN in the Redirect program, and I try to be the best LGBTQIA ally that I can be. Hello, I'm Tracy. I'm the support coordinator for FAN, as well as a person in long-term recovery.
Hello, I'm Kim Baffo. I'm the program director for Hope Not Handcuffs and a woman in long-term recovery.
My name is Rick. I'm a full-time peer recovery coach for FAM. I'm with the quick response team, and I work for 25th District Court as well. And I am a person in long-term recovery.
Ernest, the recovering addict.
Hi, I'm Maureen, and I am a son and a husband in recovery, and I'm the executive secretary of the FAN.
I'm Dean. I'm the communications manager and operations assistant for FAN. I have a son in recovery.
I just want to bring to everyone's attention that Families Against Narcotics does offer peer recovery coaches to people in our community across the state at no charge to individuals seeking those services. And we also offer family recovery coaching to family members of people who suffer from substance use disorder. And we also provide that at no charge to our community. Anyone who is a peer recovery coach in our audience, would you please stand up? If you're interested in peer recovery coaching services, you can see one of those two individuals and any of our family recovery coaches in the audience. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to get our panel started. Stacy from Hollywood House is going to stand up and give you a little bit of her background and how she became an ally for this community.
Hi, I'm Stacy. Thank you for having me. Frankie mentioned I am the owner of 6 recovery houses in Macomb County. One of them is an LGBTQ plus recovery house that was opened last year. I'm also a member in long-term recovery. I also am the parent of a transgender child. So I have a couple hats. Public speaking is not my forte, so I'm gonna do the best I can. You guys bear with me. I struggle with some words because I'm not always knowledgeable. I struggle with all those letters put together. My son recently changed his name, and so I'm learning the new pronouns, and I'm doing the best I can. But if I struggle with some wording that's incorrect, it's not meant to be offensive, and please let me know so I can learn. It's funny because my daughter's name was Allison, and we called her Allie, and we spelled it like this, and she's now Ashton, and that's fine, but she says I wear this shirt to do the most. It's true. But I'm here to talk mostly about recovery housing. I got clean in a recovery house, and then I've worked in recovery housing since 2015. Traditionally, recovery houses are separated by biological gender, men's houses and women's houses, and sometimes that works, but sometimes that's not always the best fit. And I have some very close friends in this community, and it seems like I would see different struggles that they would have. And in my houses, I really feel like addicts in recovery, we struggle for a long time not feeling good about ourselves. So I don't want anyone ever to come into one of our houses and to be made not feel good about themselves. So I don't tolerate any kind of bullying or degradation or stereotypes, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. It's
It's very unfortunate, and I address it when it does, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So I've seen people struggle with different issues because we come into recovery and we don't feel great about ourselves. And a lot of times we feel awkward and we don't fit in. And so if you add a stigma on top of that to make people uncomfortable, I think the number one thing for me in a recovery house was that I felt a part of something. I felt like I had people around me that understood. I felt like I had support. I felt like I had people that I could turn to. Whether we all got along at the same time or not, there were people there. And from my perspective, the struggle I find is that not everyone gets that fit. You know, I had more traditional three-quarter houses, and I have a close friend who was in another recovery house, and the best fit that they could find for her, she identifies as a gay woman, was in a men's mat house. And she's the kind of person who can make friends anywhere, so she was okay, but I would notice with talking to her that she didn't get that camaraderie. She didn't feel that support from the men in her house. She didn't have that initial inclusion into recovery that made her feel safe and comfortable. And I feel like everyone in recovery deserves a safe place to call home, a safe place to be who they truly are. You know, and I don't know what it's like to be a part of this community, but I do know what it's like to not feel okay with fundamentally who I am and to not feel accepted by the people that want to accept me the most, for various reasons. So I don't know if I can understand, I can empathize. So I had this friend, and I started thinking, and I started talking with some of my other friends about the struggles that they were going to, and I'm like, okay, let's open this house. Let's open this house specifically for this, because there's a need for it. And I got really gung-ho, and I went to open it, and I'm like, now what do I do? Because I wasn't educated. I wasn't formally knowledgeable in how to navigate these waters. And prior to the beginning of this year, I worked for a company where I was not the owner of the company, so I had to pass this through them, and there were all these awkward questions about how are you going to screen your residents, and are you going to ask them about all these things that I didn't want to ask people, because I'm not going to ask straight people what their sexual preferences are, and I don't feel like I should ask people in this community that either. It's really none of my business. Do you want a safe place to recover? I want to give that to you, regardless. And so we opened this house, and the first resident was that friend of mine, and she's been a great help because I have friends in my life that when I don't know, I can ask them a question without them feeling offended. I can go to them when I'm struggling with changing my daughter to my son into pronouns in my mind, because I can accept it, but it's still difficult. It's still difficult to raise a child for 21 years at one gender and to switch over. I'm going to be honest, that's not meant to offend anyone. I support him, I love him unconditionally, but that is difficult to do that. And so we slowly got the word out and tried to, you know, build up this house and how can we make it better. And we kind of were winging it. We were kind of going with the flow and figuring things out as we went. And my second resident was a transgender woman who was coming from a prison rehabilitation center where she was housed in a counselor's office, sleeping under a table because she was forced to be in a men's facility, and for her own safety, they had to lock her in a counselor's office at night and put a bed under a table. And I just didn't feel like that was okay. That's your introduction into recovery, to feel separated and different and less than if you're sleeping under a table? You know, so those are some things that I see, but another, I think a bonus of this is that we have a large house meeting where all the houses come together. And I think it has helped educate some other people in the straight community, if that's the correct wording, for some prejudices. Because we have some people in recovery, that men in their 50s and 60s that have done time in prison and have some preconceived notions, or suffered some sexual abuse and have some incorrect feelings and thoughts. And I've watched them learn from one another and learn to be open and ask questions and become great friends and put some of those prejudices aside. I don't know that they stop all of them. I know that I address them and we talk about it, and I don't tolerate that kind of stuff, but I've seen men really grow from this. And I think the thing that I've learned the most is if we can ask questions and be honest, because if I'm saying something offensive, it's not to offend, it's because I don't know. It's because I'm uneducated. And so I ask the uncomfortable questions. And I'm very fortunate that I have people in my life that will be really honest with me. That I can say things that I'm afraid are going to offend, because how am I going to learn if I don't ask those hard questions? But I think the bottom line is we have to look at, I don't think it's a growing population. I think it's an awareness that is growing of this population. And there are needs that need to be met. It is not conducive to make people sleep under tables. That is not conducive. It is not conducive to someone in recovery to make them feel more uncomfortable, less a part of, and more separate. You know, so we're doing our best in our own little way, and hopefully that's helping people. There's some logistics with this house. I'm either on a waiting list or I'm empty. So we've made it friendly. And there are people that are supporters and allies that have moved in, and we talk about it before they move in. So it's not segregated, it's open, but I'm still not asking those questions. You know, and someone posed to me, well, what if somebody's pretending to get into a house with a woman? That's a lot of stuff to go through if that's what you're trying to do, and it'll lead itself out, you know, but I just feel like everyone has the right to have a safe place to recover. Everyone has a right to feel okay with who they are on the inside. And whether I can do that by hugging people whose moms don't accept them, or being there for my friends, or opening this house, or for supporting my child, we're all just people, and we're all just addicts in recovery, most of us, some of us are parents, and we just gotta stick together, I think. Really don't have much more to say, and I hope that is something.
Thank you, Stacy. That was awesome. Get text messages from the audience that people love you. Our next speaker is the parent of one of our participants who is transgender and also suffers from substance use disorder, and she's going to share her experience, and her name is Susan.
Thanks for having me, first of all. If I can read this, I'm not into public speaking either, first time. But, yeah, I have a 37-year-old transgender son, born a female, who is also dealing with the disease of substance abuse, and also was diagnosed with mental challenges as a child. When Tyler came out was Michelle, and I do have so much difficulty with that, because depending on who I talk to, and this has been going on for like, I don't know, 20 years, but anyway, when Tyler was like 6 years old, her dad and I noticed he was wearing men's clothes, and associating more with boys. Those were his comrades. Boy toys, he wanted an arrow and a bow and a bullseye, and they're like, no, we don't need you to do that. And he's like, I'm getting it. And so he packs his suitcase and says, I'm leaving, you get me that or I'm leaving. And he took off around the pond. You know, we sat there and giggled and walked. He got so far, and finally went out, and he said, I gotta go to the bathroom, I gotta go home. So he comes home. But anyway, we didn't realize that that was the start of the earthquake, the tumult. That it felt like then, because that was the early 90s, and Dad was totally closed-minded about this. We ended up getting a divorce, and I worked hard over the years, and I struggled so hard to get help for Tyler. We didn't realize then. We didn't realize till Tyler was about 26, and Tyler actually didn't realize either. It just took a long time. So here. And Tyler to this day distrusts some men, because like Tyler sent a birthday card to his father last week and a Father's Day card, and the dad sent it back and said, you signed it, Tyler. You know, I don't want to do this. So that kind of puts in a nutshell the struggle that I've gone through with him. And I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and I don't want to get into that, but it's all about forgiving people and accepting people for what they are, and that's what's got me through this until I found FAN. But I just thought I'd throw that in. There was another story. We went to Stony Creek one day, and we wanted to play disc golf, and there was a little hut there, and there was all these rowdy people around it, and Tyler sports this shirt that says, I'm a man trapped in a woman's body. And, you know, he presents as a man, short hair I had. And they didn't want to rent us the disc golf, the disc. I don't know why. He didn't really give a clear answer, and you could tell he was friends with these rowdy people, so we left. And that was another little struggle, you know. It was like, oh, do I tell Tyler that I think they did that because they didn't like the way he presented, or do I pretend like it didn't happen and seem insensitive? I mean, the little struggles add up. I mean, Tyler's had plenty of hospitalizations. He's had plenty of therapy. Quit high school, he doesn't have a job, but, you know, you get through it. And you just go through these struggles. There was another struggle. Oh, I went to a sport group with Tyler after we discovered. And one of the older ones, Tyler was shy at first, so I would go. And Tyler, I was the only girl there. And the people at the support group, all the guys there, they were wonderful. They had heartfelt, intelligent, moving stories to tell. But they referred to Tyler the entire time as a she. So, you know, you just kind of deal with it. And so I had paralyzing anxiety, you know, when I found out Tyler was using, he got mixed up with the wrong people. It was just a horrible story. It was someone who had spent decades in prison, let's say, for a violent, gravely violent crime. And they drained Tyler's bank account. It was horrific. I have a hard time reading my notes. I hope I'm staying on point. I just want to give you a couple statistics, just because at first I thought I wasn't the right person to be here. But according to the American Medical Association, 9% of the general population has struggles with substance abuse. 30% of the LGBTQ population has struggles with substance abuse, where 50% of the population who have mental health challenges, dual diagnosis, have struggles with addiction. So, you know, it's rough. And the medical news today also pointed out, this is on the local news, there are 72 different types of LGBTQ people. So, like, how do you find the right therapist? How do you find the right doctors? How do you find the right home? Because people don't have focused experience that they need professionals, including doctors and therapists. But I struggle and I look and I try to find the best that I can. Now, when Tyler was 26, got lucky, got an apartment in Ferndale, and found affirmations. It was like joy forever. Tyler was, he found his identity. He was accepted. He thrived. Prior to this, he always felt not accepted. He always kind of shunned and stayed away from people and just had a hard time socializing. He would act out social behaviors instead of making genuine relationships. So he thrived for 10 years. He had his own apartment, paid his own bills. He doesn't drive, but I would help him with transportation. He did well. Then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, look out, that's when he met and started the substance abuse. He was isolated, he didn't have any supports, affirmations closed, and then he got a ticket for drug paraphernalia. He wouldn't tell me for a couple months, and finally, when he had a court date, I found out, and then the probation officer is the one who turned me on to FAN. And that was like a godsend lifesaver. The family recovery plan is on my fridge, even when Tyler's there, and I refer to it often. The best thing that I learned from my coach was to stop helping too much. I had that problem. She could listen to me. She heard what I was saying. When I tried to talk to family members or to friends, it was just like, they were just like, they couldn't deal with it. But with my coach, it was like my respite. It was like my home. I felt so good. And I learned that sometimes it's better to do nothing than to try to help too much. And several other things. So I meditate. I used to meditate, but I meditate about twice as much now because I have to snap myself out of the funk. The funk just, it gets so thick and so heavy. I take that hope and that knowledge that I learned with my FAN coach with me every day to try to cope with all of this. And in closing, I'm going to say that there are so many unanswered questions. And I know that attending support groups is hard for people, but sometimes you don't know it's helping you at the minute, but then afterwards it sinks in and it really helps get you through the day. And I have to say, I went to an open support group in this guy came in and he was just like dressed so flagrantly, you know, I was just, and we all do this judging, and that's why I constantly work at it, trying not to judge people and to accept people. But I was like, oh boy. And then when this man spoke, I got goosebumps. He was so intelligent, so hard-moving. So he impressed me so much with his story, and I honored his bravery. It just blew me right away. So, in closing, I want to let every addict know that they're not alone, and we're here to help them, and that we need to be more accepting and to answer questions with open hearts and unconditional love. Part of me hates to dwell on this, but we must have conversations to the right people to evolve, and we should expect miracles, because miracles, when we're connected to our higher power, are the natural order of things. We are the crossover generation. We need to normalize this new thought, this new acceptance. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Susan. Our next speaker is Brett. He is an employee of FAN and a member of the community. I'm sure he will draw you guys.
So, yeah, I was sitting here listening to the last two speakers speak, and I heard a lot of pain. You know, a lot of people in the LGBT community that were misunderstood or dealt with in an incorrect way. Makes me think about my years in high school. You know, I took phys ed at the end. I came out openly when I was 16, and they made me change in the teacher's office because they didn't, because the men in my gym class didn't feel comfortable with me changing. You know, and the thing is I really don't, like, my sexuality is my sexuality. You know, like, I don't, just because there's other men in the room doesn't mean that I like have any kind of interest in it. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things I've noticed with males. But so I've been in recovery for I've been clean for 14 months. It has been a battle. You know, I was talking a little bit about like the pain that I went through in school. I was introduced to pills, Norvell's, Vicodin, morphine, all of that kind of stuff at a really early age. Because for me, when that all started for me, the prescriptions were like they were just writing there was like just such an influence. You know, like it was so easy to get. You know, I would go to parties and I would just do it on the weekends. And when I got into college, it started to become more of a problem. You know, and it was filling that gap for me. You know, I felt like this disconnect. You know, because when I was in high school, I was the only gay identifying male in school. And when I moved into college, you know, I thought things would be a lot different. You know, I grew up out in the country, so I dealt with that kind of school environment where it was a lot of farmers and there's a lot of people that didn't have an accepting religion. You know, and moving to Grand Rapids, I felt like things would be a little bit different. I think maybe I just moved into the wrong part of the town. I mean, like it was super conservative, like the school that I went to. I still didn't get the acceptance I was looking for. You know, so my disease progressed. You know, like I started continuing to take more, and I was taking them every day to survive. Like when I didn't take them, I literally felt like my body was shutting down. You know, it was just the most horrible feeling, and I'm sure a lot of you can And I think that's like the biggest struggle between, for parents, is that they don't actually understand what the feeling feels like, to feel trapped and alone, and like there's no solution. And I continued on with that, and then they cut back the prescriptions for the Norcos, and I was having a hard time finding them. And I ended up turning to heroin. At first it was just a little bit to fill in the gaps. I didn't have enough pills here, so I would do a little bit of this just to fill in the gap. And I became out during the wedding. It was just, I guess it was really, really surprising to me and to my family. I graduated top of my class. I got a $10,000 scholarship for college. I was going to get straight A's and everything, and then all of a sudden, like, this happened. And they didn't know what to do. A lot of parents feel lost, especially, with me being gay as well. Like, my parents were already having a hard time. And they were reading these books, on what it was like to hear a gay song, and there's a lot of stigma that goes with that. I don't know, but gay male community has a stigma on being like people going to bars and going to clubs and partying and getting high on meth and just being completely out of control and promiscuous, and the books that my parents were reading that's the impression that they got. And I got into a long-term relationship with somebody for 7 years, and it showed my parents that it wasn't like that. That was just a stereotype. And a lot of people live their life. Anyways, I guess the thing that I'm talking about right now is the opioid epidemic in general. I went from the Norcos to the heroin to the police arrest. That's kind of like the pattern that we've had in our society right now, is a lot of people getting arrested for their drug use and their possession or use of it. And this is all new to me. I still a lot of the time don't know what to do. I spent most of my life, I started using when I was 16, and I'll be 36 next month. And I use most of my life, getting up here and talking is something like outside of my work. My drug of choice was something that was really private to me, something where I would use in the bathroom, and nobody ever saw it, nobody ever knew exactly what was going on. I'm sure they suspected something, but so it kept me segregated from society. I couldn't make friends, and then eventually people would notice that I was using, and what I was using, and how horribly addictive it was. I was just so fearful of it, because I guess the thing is until I was ready to stop, like there was no stopping. I didn't even want the rest of somebody to try. So, because my parents did. They did at first. They tried to do whatever they could. And then eventually, they had to raise the other kids. I was the oldest, and I took off to the street. And they tried over and over again to help me, and just didn't know what to do. And what's different this time? This time I decided to reach out and get help. I went to a rehab. I moved into a sober living. I got connected with the resources that has to offer. I started out with just a scholarship into sober living, and turned into, I had a peer recovery coach, who I was completely lost when I came to Detroit. I'm not talking about from Dale Creek. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what the next steps were. And the peer recovery coach was able to do that. because that's what they had experienced, as helping people in those first, 6 months of recovery. And I was able to build a nice foundation for myself, because really, the whole time I was using, I thought that was my only choice. I felt like I was making the best decision for myself, for the situation that I was in. So there's something wrong with my thinking. Like, what do they say? First thought wrong. So yeah, I've had to reach out and ask advice about what I can. Right now, I'm looking for an apartment. I'm finally getting out of sober living, and I don't know what I'm doing. I've never had my own apartment before. I've always slept on people's couches. You know what I mean? And just searched around, stayed with family members for as long as they could deal with me. So I'm finally in a place now where I can have my own place and have my independence, and to make the better choices. So that's really what FAN has done for me. Like they've really been there when I felt all alone. And I'm just really grateful that there's a program like this in our community, because that's really what we need. They fill in, they meet people where they're at, and I just think that's really great. So, thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Brett. That was awesome. Makes me want to just help him right. Our next speaker is Jana.
I'm Jana. I'm in recovery and I'm transgender. So everything everyone said up here, it was like hearing pieces of my story from everyone. Lots of things played, into my addiction. But I will say, like, never feeling like the person who I was on the outside matched the person who was on the inside was definitely a big part of it. And like you were sharing about your son, I hear stories that I don't even remember because I was too young. But my mom would say that she would like get me, like put like bows in my hair and everything. And we're like at the grocery store, and as soon as she'd turn away, I'd take them out and throw them away. She'd put me in girls' clothing, and I would take it off. I remember I was in kindergarten, and it was picture day. And this girl comes up to me, and she's like, "Why aren't you wearing a dress?" And I'm like standing there in my little like overalls and t-shirt, and I was like, "Why would I wear a dress?" And she's like, "'Cause you're a girl." And I just remember it so vividly, and I was 5, I also never played with, I guess you'd say, like girls' toys as a child either. I would always play with my brother's little action figures or his dinosaurs. I would wear his hand-me-down clothing. And my parents were supportive. Throughout all of this, my parents are very supportive. They might sometimes not understand, but that doesn't mean that they're not supportive. But there were some things that, like, I remember just as vividly, where, I don't know how to put it. So they were fine with me wearing like men's clothing growing up, but there were sometimes they weren't. If it was a holiday like Christmas, or there was like a daddy-daughter dance or something like that, like they'd force me to like wear a dress or wear whatever, and I just remember bawling my eyes out. I want to say I came out when I was 12. I came out, I guess, at that point in time. I'm actually uneducated, so I don't mean to offend anyone either. I guess you would say I came out as a lesbian when I was 12, right? I didn't know, I still didn't understand what was happening. I don't think I understood what was happening with myself until maybe 2 years ago. I don't know. But there was just so many things that happened throughout my life where I felt so uncomfortable with who I was, and I didn't understand why. There was a whole bunch of other stuff, that led me to addiction, but that part of it, it played a big part. And I remember I was 17 years old, and I was on house arrest. And at this point, like, I'd already been using IV heroin for a little while. And have you guys ever heard of like that Scared Straight program that's on MTV? Okay, so I kept failing drug tests consistently, and they made me go through that program. And I was walking in there, and I'm like, I walk in, and they put me into the women's jail. And I, like, for a second, like, I was just mind blown, because I always pictured if I go to jail, I'm going to be sitting in a jail cell with a bunch of men. And at that moment, at 17 years old, I realized, wait a second, that's not how this works. Like, my whole life has been very confusing with a sense of self and who I am. And I was out using for a long time, and for me, I use a 12-step program, and I think sponsorship played a big part in me being comfortable with who I am. Because it was someone I could sit there and I could talk to, and I could be open and I could be honest, and they would point things out to me that I didn't even realize. And one day I came to this realization that I didn't feel like a female at all, but I was scared. I was scared because I didn't understand. I was scared because the world, not all the world understands. I was scared because it's a change. I was scared because I was afraid I was going to lose people that loved me. And about a year ago, I started testosterone. This past January, I had top surgery. There's been so many things, but there's still things that are really hard for me. Public bathrooms, that sucks. It sucked before because I was very masculine kind of to begin with. People would be like, oh, you're in the wrong bathroom, and I'd be like, I'm not. So I'd always try to find like single family bathrooms, or specifically stop at like if I'm driving, specifically stop somewhere that I know has single bathrooms. And even now it is, because you have to walk into the men's room. It's very strange. There's lots of things people ask me, like my pronouns, and I'm like, I don't know what to say. And I was thinking about it driving here, and I was like, well, I feel like he, why wouldn't I just tell everyone to say he, right? But it's because I think it's fear, it's fear of, I think it's fear of what if people don't respect it? Then I'm going to be really mad, right? There's just things like that that are hard to maneuver still, that I'm still learning as I go. But I will say, like, the support group I've made since I've gotten sober are completely 100% understanding of it. And I think they help me more than, they realize it just by listening. And just by asking me questions, to make me think or ask questions so they understand. And, it's people that truly, love and care about me through this process, that I know that are going to have my back 100%, that make it doable for me to be able to wake up and feel like the person who I was supposed to be in my whole life. So that's all I got. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, Chana. Our next speaker is Mark. He is too many things to name, so I'll let him tell you all of the ways that he fits into this panel.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. My name is Mark McMillan, as was just introduced. Excuse me, I want to get to my notes, and as I do that, I do want to say thank you first to FAN for inviting me here tonight. I'm very, very grateful to be a part of this great, awesome panel up here. There's been a lot of great honesty. I really appreciate that. And I just want to pause and recognize the honesty and strength it takes to come up here and talk like that. I also want to thank you all tonight. I know this is like a monthly meeting, but you all chose to be here tonight. And I want to pause and recognize that too. You could have done something else tonight. So I really appreciate you being here. And yeah, happy Pride. We're all supporting Pride. I believe today is actually the anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising. Someone would Google that. I think it was June 28th. I might not be that sure, but it was over 50 years ago. So yeah, my name is Mark. Very, very casual. Call me Mark. I do want to say a few things first that I call them my perspective, like what might influence my talk. And I do have a lot to talk about, so I have about 20 minutes to get through. First, I want to let you know that I do identify as a cisgender male. If you're not familiar with that really quick, it just means that my sex assigned at birth matches my gender identity. And I point up here because our gender resides up here. And it just means today it solely matches. And it's also a more inclusive term today, cisgender male. If you have any questions on that, comment, ask me later. Next, I do identify as a gay male. And my joke in that is since the Lady Gaga song Born This Way came out, I really identified with that. Next, I identify, I am a white male, and I've taken a long time to really get to this point to understand that. And I still don't really understand that fully. In addition to being a white male, that comes with privilege today. And even though I do identify in a stigmatized and oppressed group as a gay male, I do sometimes pass, and I have to recognize that. And that also means too, when I'm talking with others, that they may perceive me in a certain way, and I take a long time to get what that means as well. I do want to pause and recognize I'm nervous, so you can see my handshake until I calm down, because it's just the beginning when I start to talk in front of people until it goes away. Next, I want to let you know that I identify as a biased human. There's been a lot of talk today about implicit bias in that. And just know, all of us, just the way the brain operates, we all operate from a place of bias, only in that how the brain stores information and what we do with that information, like what we do next in our behavior is what gets us in trouble. And finally, I'd like to let you know I identify as a person in recovery from alcohol. And I do follow a 12-step program, so we count our days. And I'm just over about 18 years sober now. So a few things. I recently opened my own private practice. Well, not so much anymore. It's been about 2 years, actually. I have a private psychotherapy practice in Ferndale. I specialize in treating addiction. And today we would say more chemical addiction and process behavior addiction, because there's two. And I specialize within the LGBT community. So, where am I? Pronoun practice, Friday day. Okay. I guess I'm the person that's giving you a lot of education tonight, so here we go. First, we would want to remember most of us come from trauma today. You might have heard the word trauma a lot, and mostly if you hear the word trauma, you probably think more old school, meaning really quick. Something happened to us, and it was like one event. So think like a severe car accident we survived, a severe weather event that we survived. And there has to be three things. One, it probably threatened our lives. Two, it made us feel terror, like object really fear. And three, we couldn't get out. So that's more acute trauma that we recognize today. The other part we would want to recognize, and more so a lot of us have, would be complex trauma, and especially in our community. Complex trauma is similar, that one, there would be a feeling of fear, and then two, a feeling of being stuck. However, it's not one event. So in our formative years, from 0 to 18, we would have all these small events. Fear, terror, feeling stuck, things like that. In addition, there's new research, and you might have heard, hopefully, it's called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. Today we say more ACEs and move away from saying like child abuse. Most likely if you hear child abuse, you're gonna do a couple things. One, you're gonna picture a small child that matches your own gender. Two, you're gonna picture a small child that matches your gender and any other demographic, your race, whatever. And three, most likely either think of physical or sexual. And a way to move away from that, because there's so much more going on, unfortunately, is this adverse childhood experience. In this, there's about 10 things, and I'm not gonna go through them all, but remember, it still covers those more basic ones, unfortunately, that happens today. For example, unfortunately, statistically, most white gay males are more often sexually abused as children than their counterparts. Then there would be some household challenges. Recognizing, for example, a guardian or parent who's incarcerated, a guardian or parent who is using substance abuse issues, the violence, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, things like that. What we want to recognize too is more emerging research that says growing up LGBTQ+ today can be a form of ACEs, meaning somebody growing up like myself, not really understanding that I was different from my brothers, what does that really mean, not really feeling a part of the family, feeling a black sheep, those types of things. And already having that foundation, because we know most substance abuse is hereditary, generational, so there's a family piece as well. So in this sense, that sort of growing up in my formative years, the idea that trying to figure out who I was, living in fear and secrecy. So the next thing you would want to remember would be not just shame in the past, but now what's being called shame identity. Growing up with this idea that we're the mistake, there's something wrong with us, I'm abnormal and I don't belong here. And it's more than just shame, because growing up and acting within this, if it's not healed, then obviously the identity is really a part of the person who they are. Within all this, then, trying to be authentic and trying to come out and live our lives, there's so much more going on then. For example, there's new language today. We're trying to move away from saying coming out. The coming out gives the power to the other person. So for example, when I say to a family or friend, hey, I have something to tell you, I want to come out to you as gay, it gives them the power to reject me. What we want to start saying more is inviting me in. And I want to say, for example, to my family or friend, I want to let you know and invite you in to know more about me, that I'm gay or bisexual or something. In this sense, then we're talking about the power struggle of what's going on today. To get a little more clinical, somebody living their life and going through, especially in public, and running into fear of violence, fear of being misgendered, just living their authenticity, but always scanning for safety. So unfortunately, with unhealed trauma in our past, walking into any situation, unconsciously, the brain is already on high alert. That lizard brain and all that stuff, meaning the person is hypersensitive to safety. So even walking outside, going to their job, going to the grocery store, all of this involves, and maybe even unconscious, but all of that energy, how am I going to be safe? In addition, we don't just come out once. Some of us come out daily. Do I have to let this person know my gender? Do I have to let them know who I sleep with in the bedroom? Maybe just by the way I act, or I dress, or meeting a new coworker or somebody at the grocery store. All of this and how the person is living, consider this stress, but now it's called minority stress. And that is also playing on school. So now we have complex trauma, which includes growing up LGBT, unhealed then, going through the daily life. That how they experience, should I be safe, can I do this? That stress would be minority stress. Of course, we're all here tonight because of substance use or addiction disorder. Add to this then one negative coping. There's many reasons why someone's going to use. And by the way, I try not to say certain words anymore, like alcoholic or addict. And in my practice, I try to educate around out of control behavior. There's a lot more research going on today. Addiction used to be only the chemical that happened and how it affected the brain, were the consequences to the person's use, and then moving into dependence. Today, and you see some of the slides, there is more language around mild, moderate, or severe, and addiction disorder treatment, and then in an out-of-control behavior way, I can focus in more on the behavior, and then introduce some harm reduction as well to reduce the harm. And in this way, focusing on treatment, I can also help heal shame. So I can zero in, see what's going on, educate about ACEs, and really help this person to not only feel safe for the first time, but really understand what has been done to them. Not what's been happening around them, but what's been done to them. And in this way, it takes a long time, of course, but hopefully the person can then, that emotional regulation, gain the skills to live and be out there appropriately. Maybe some self-advocating when it's necessary, how to know when things are going a certain way, and maybe having to leave if necessary to save themselves. So I mentioned process addiction or behavior addiction. Today, especially in our community, it's not just about chemicals. So that we would recognize, especially for middle-aged or older gay men, it's probably under 2 millennials, 30s or so. There's still a lot of misuse going on. And in this realm, you may have heard the term chemsex, but this idea that within certain parts of the community, alcohol use, certain drug use, is so connected to sex and sexual behavior that if we're trying to heal one piece, the addiction piece, we're forgetting about the behavior piece. And in this way, I try to help educate most therapists to be comfortable to talk about sex, number one. We're sexual creatures. There's, as humans, there's 2 things that we need. We need to feel a part of, which is why it's so important in a community and a group like this, recovery, fellowship. And we need that skin-to-skin contact. And that includes sex, sexual pleasure, sexual behavior. So in a behavior addiction sense, and just looking at the chemical piece, many of us are realizing, and the research is supporting, we're overlooking a very bigger piece that may influence their relapse, or what I call regression. I really don't like the word relapse, but in an addiction treatment program, it has its place. The American Society for Addiction Medicine has its 6 components for treatment, and it still recognizes relapse as an important component. And it is important in a clinical sense. For all of us, though, I'd rather use language that makes sense. Regression, going back to what we know. If things were going down, then instead of going down for the individual, instead of saying trigger, I like to use the language of activated or activate. This way too, it removes more shame and stigma. We're throwing the word trigger around. And in gaining new skills, we do need to recognize certain things may activate us. I could be activated driving here at 696 and if someone cuts me off and I feel a certain way. When I was early on in my program, my sponsor would always say, the quality or sort of the mood of my driving was also the quality of the mood of my recovery program. And at first I was all like, I don't understand it at all. And then when I realized how aggressive, how much I would swear, like how hostile I was as a driver, I started to realize, oh, there was a lot more going on that I need to look at. And some of this goes back to that minority stress, the behavior piece that I'm talking about. So we want to recognize if you are a parent, a family, friend of someone struggling, and especially in this community, there are a few other things going on today. I know there's a lot around in the news that I don't need to get into, but a few things to remember. Number one, just being our authentic selves, where I could get into gender expression, not just sexual orientation. So stepping outside onto the porch, a transgender individual, a more effeminate male, a more effeminate African American male, someone stepping outside in public just by perception is now placing themselves at risk and not just feeling unsafe, but actual violence today. So the thing to remember is this person who you are loving and unconditionally supporting, there's much more going on that might need more questions. The idea that how can I support you now becomes how can I help you feel safe? How much more should I know what's going on for you that I might be able to help you feel safe as well? So stepping outside, being our authentic selves, it might not just be the clothes we wear. It's our gestures, our voice, all of our mannerisms is caught up in this gender expression. And this focus too today, we're so much around gender, genitalia. There's still in Michigan laws that are coming out against younger youth. You know, where can they play, what kind of gender and all that. To me, it's sort of, not just a political sense, to me it's sort of silly because gender is all around us. And in recognizing that the heteronormativity that's going on, from the time that a parent knows that they're pregnant, one of the very first things a more heteronormative couple is going to do, they want to know the gender of the baby, or they don't want to know the gender so they can have a big gender reveal party. So right from the beginning, we're already saying gender is binary, gender is blue or pink, and all of these things. And then it's supported by all of the media around still, unfortunately. Throw into that today the more divisive views that are going on, and suddenly, not just my orientation, now the gender or someone else's gender is getting politicized. So coming into my practice, I need to remember it's complex trauma from the past, but this minority stress, this having to deal with safety every single day, from a very small point of will I be misgendered, will I be outed, or how safe can I be if I go to this, car dealership? How safe can I be to put a LGBT pride flag out on my lawn or my fence? Because this is inviting more violence than we might otherwise not be. Okay. Against ourselves. Oh, so there's a lot more research, of course, you may have heard. There's more barriers to healthcare today. I like to talk with other healthcare professionals. There's a difference between being LGBTQ friendly and being actually competent. There's actually ethics out there for most healthcare professional bodies and organizations. I happen to belong to the National Association of Social Workers. You might have your doctors and things, but around this idea, there's a competency level that what we learn and train and keep being trained on, that is our competency. And someone just being friendly may not realize the lack of training to the client that they're trying to serve. In addition, that I mentioned coming out every day, should this individual who's struggling, they don't know themselves, they might have just been pulled over and now have a DUI, and now they're going to the probation officer and walking into that office, how are they going to be safe? How are they going to be perceived? So coming into my office, one of the first things I try to do again is educate and let them know again what's happened to them, and let them know there are still barriers, there are still some people out there who are not aware, and that they do need some education. There may be some people who are out there and they know the education and they're just not going to change, but we still have to deal with them in a certain way. So that comes back to that minority stress, and having to go through the hoops and ladders, maybe a probation officer or some other healthcare provider who should actually know better, and how do we have to deal with that in the best way we can. It comes back to that power, control, the position of power of what's going on for them. And in this realm, I try to help them recognize language, recognize self-advocacy, when to say something, when to not, and when to bring up people. So, is that all? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, what an amazing panel. I want to thank everybody. I know that a lot of that sharing with a bunch of strangers cannot be easy. Did anybody use the index cards? Mark, I'm going to direct this to you. There's not a name, but what do you suggest for a gay man who is overwhelmed and intimidated when attending a non-LGBTQ NA meeting?
What would I suggest to the individual who's at a non-LGBT recovery meeting?
Thank you.
Okay, what would I suggest to an individual who's at a non-LGBT recovery meeting? I would first remind them that according to most traditions, everyone is welcome at the table, number one. And in that idea, especially in the traditional 12-step AA, the tradition states you have a desire to stop drinking. If it's any other type of recovery, there's many paths to recovery. I would remind them too, they have a right to be there as well. However, as I mentioned before, if they're feeling overwhelmed and how they can be safe, I believe that's why we would want to be open to how people share and maybe connect with those who may have a similar story at first. And possibly, again, depending on the program, maybe approach someone as a temporary sponsor, maybe approach someone in the beginning who you felt had a similar story. And in this way, that connection at first, you can go through recovery until you feel more comfortable. Lastly, what would I say to someone at a non-LGBT who's feeling overwhelmed? I always come down to hope. There's hope for this individual that things will change. If this feels uncomfortable 1 or 2 or 3 times that they go, I always tell my clients there's many paths of recovery, and meetings are like people. Some meetings can be very, very good, and they become our best friend. You know, we can't live without them. Unfortunately, especially for us in our community, some meetings can be very toxic, and we need to recognize that, and that's okay.
I don't really know who to direct this question towards. Maybe Jana. How do you deal with the discrimination in hospitals and the violence directed at the LGBTQ? Also, how do you deal with it in healthcare?
I've actually kind of been very fortunate in the fact that there hasn't really been a spot where I have been discriminated against or in danger. I honestly think the gay male community has much more of that for some reason. The healthcare is definitely a navigation because lots of places are still kind of unsure what to do or how to do or who to send you to. For hormone replacement therapy, they'd have to send you through to, you have to like get a referral and you have to go to, a special like place. They can't just do that at your normal doctor's office. Luckily for me, like with my surgery, I paid out of pocket for that because honestly, like the healthcare, like it was too confusing. There was lots of regulations and stipulations of like things you had to do, and they told me that I had to go to therapy, for a year. That was in the guidelines to have it covered, and like to make sure I'm mentally stable. And then honestly, like I just took that kind of as offensive, So I ended up maneuvering around that actually. I think that's something that's still being worked on and in process. So yeah.
Thank you. Brett, this question is specifically for you. Okay, what was the turning point for you, and what do you do to maintain your healthy lifestyle?
It's funny, I was just talking about this idea last night. When I was first in recovery, I felt like I was like running in fear of the next relapse. Like I was afraid to put myself in any kind of situation or around any type of person that would jeopardize my recovery. Then I feel like at some point, as I got more comfortable, it turned into me walking towards my goals, where I was having long-term goals and short-term goals, and actually achieving them and finding the satisfaction that brought me. And it was almost like I was getting, I have the support I needed now to make the decisions and changes that I need to make in my life. And it feels really good achieving these goals, and having a group of people cheering you on, because that's not how I felt much of my life.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to thank everyone who came out and took the time to listen to our panel, to open your minds to a population who is double stigmatized. Not only are we stigmatized by substance use disorder, but we're also stigmatized by being non-heterosexual. So thank you for that, and I want to thank our panel. You guys did a fantastic job. That's it.